Stanislaus County in California. It is the 27th of October, and it's currently 7:04 p.m. In accordance with board policy, this announcement is to advise all attendees that tonight's board meeting is being recorded. Persons wishing to address the board on any agenda or non-agendized item must fill out a speaker card, and they can forward that on to Velma to make sure that she sees that you would like to address the board. We'd like to report out a closed session. The direction was given to all staff on the things that we discussed in the closed session. At this time, I am looking for a board member to give me a motion or give a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Miyakawa and a second.
A second.
Second by Mr. Collins. Roll call vote, please.
Board Member Collins.
Aye.
Board Member Harvey.
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay. Mrs. Lindsay says she has no sound.
Okay, just go ahead and skip over her then for a
Board
moment.
Member Miyakawa.
Aye.
Board Member Raw.
Aye, that's a 4-0 vote. The agenda is adopted for the evening. At this time, if all of you would arise with me, and we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all for standing and joining me on the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I just want to make one statement that it has been brought to my attention that some individuals in the community were wondering when the Board of Trustees were going to return to in-person board meetings. I can tell you that as of right now, we have researched the information regarding the ability for us to return to board meetings. We came up with 3 options. The first option is that we would continue with board meetings on the Zoom platform as we have been for the preceding several months. As many of you are aware, our last board meeting was attended by over 230 people. So based upon our analysis and analysis by administration, that we found that the Zoom meetings have been effectively working and have been able to be watched by a wide audience and a lot of participants. Option number 2 was for the Board of Trustees to return to in-person meetings, and those in-person meetings to follow state guidelines that have been published for school districts, and based upon our physical location, we would have to limit our board meetings to a maximum of 50 people and to provide for social distancing, masks, and so forth. Also within that venue, all board members and all participants would be required to wear masks the entire time, which might be a little bit difficult for the public to see our faces and see our expressions and our demeanors during a board meeting. But most importantly, that particular meeting could only hold 50 people, whereas our last meeting, we had 230 people. So we would have to exclude somewhere around 180 people at the last meeting. So our third option that we explored was, could we do a hybrid where the Board of Trustees met in a physical location and that we would use technology that would allow us to publicize the meeting in such a way? Well, The current Zoom technology would not function appropriately. As just one simple example would be, you see that anytime someone speaks, only one person in the room can have their microphone on. Otherwise, no one would be able to understand what anybody was saying in the meeting. And those of you who have participated in Zoom meetings probably find that a bit frustrating. So we sought out a technology company that would bring the appropriate technology into the board room so that we could meet in person, but still the community would need to watch from afar. This cost, we have a bid on it right now. There may be other bids in the future that might come in less, but currently that bid is $75,000. At this point in time, we felt our funds could be used better to serve students. And so this option was removed from the table. So temporarily, at least for the coming month or so, we'll continue with our Zoom meetings so that we can get maximum exposure to our community. And we'd have an unlimited number of spots for our community to watch and participate. We anxiously look forward to an opportunity where we can return back to personal meetings where we are in person, but we do not ever want to exclude any member of the public that would like to visually see us or participate in that meeting. So under the current parameters that the government is legislating to us from Sacramento, it prohibits us from meeting in person because we would be excluding our community. So we'll continue until other options present themselves or cheaper options present themselves where we can be in person and provide the information to the public in an effective way. So as of for now, this is how we'll meet, but we'll be exploring it on a weekly, if not monthly basis, as soon as we find some other option that presents itself to us. So those of you who are wondering when we're going to be back in person, hopefully very soon, if we can find a solution to make that happen. So with that, we'll move on to information and discussion and turn over some time to our superintendent to give us a superintendent's update. Mr. Frederickson.
And we had no public participation submitted.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Frederickson. I skipped over that portion of the agenda. We do not have any written or public participation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, very good. So that was item 8 under communications on our agenda. Let's move to item 9 under information and discussion, the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. As expected, I would be giving my report on the reopening of school. That is been our primary focus. And I just want to, first of all, just give kudos to all of the staff, both at the district level and the site level, for all of the work they've been doing. This is a monumental task to do this, and we're moving forward. But I just wanted to give an update on where we are in our process. And to start that, I want to go back. I always feel like I need to revisit this because there's such confusion when you talk about the waiver, the small cohort groups, and then being in different levels of red, purple, and so on. Again, we are moving forward under our TK6 waiver, which was approved. And we are still using small cohort group guidance for some of our special education students. Currently, those are half-day programs, but our goal with that is to increase them to full-day programs once we start bringing students back in person. But again, we're going to still be following that small cohort guidance with those groups. And that's where you have 16 individuals, and that can be adults and children, a combination. And then a lot of people were confused about the tiered system. You know, when is the county going to go back into, we've been in purple. You had to, for schools to go back, they had to meet the criteria for red for 2 weeks. Last Tuesday, there was a determination that the county didn't qualify for that time, but the public health department basically filed an appeal with the California Department of Public Health, and were notified yesterday that schools are now under the red tier and could operate under red tier. Now, what that means, again, just trying to clarify those three different categories. With red, that means students in TK through 12 may return to school. Schools will definitely still need to have a plan to meet all the criteria. It's the same safety criteria that's required in a waiver process. You still have to meet all the public health guidelines. But I just tried to explain this to people because they get very confused about where we're coming back with this. And each school district chooses differently. Some districts chose not to file the waiver. They were anticipating, well, maybe we'll be in red by that time, and I don't have to fill out the waiver. That's true, but they still are required to follow all the same protocols. So either way, students are eligible in this county to return to in-person learning, meeting all the safety protocols outlined with the public health department. So moving forward with that, I want to talk about, first of all, our TK1 implementation, and that is going to be starting next Monday. So you can imagine we're on pins and needles. It's I feel like I've never started school in November before. That's what it feels like. You know, there's a lot of angst about that. You know, we want to be totally prepared. You know, but I think we kind of feel that way a lot of times at the start of school. It's like, oh, we got to get all these things taken care of, and then the excitement of the children showing up. So, I mean, I got to tell you, I am excited about being at the school sites next week. It may start to feel somewhat normal. And for me, the first time being in this district, to feel normal to go to a school site to see children there. That's why I'm in the business. So I'm excited about that opportunity. And I'm excited about the model that we chose in our district. By now, a lot of you are reading in the paper, you're seeing what other districts are doing, different models of delivery, and all districts have been working hard. I mean, to make this happen, everybody's working hard to do this. A lot have chosen to do the hybrid model. And, you know, I can understand that. And, you know, they'll be bringing those students back several days a week, some half days, some longer. But again, the model we chose that I'm so pleased with is bringing these primary students back to almost normal, to almost a normal school day. And our society needs some sense of normal right now. So I feel very good about the work we're doing with that. So we're starting out with our TK1. School will start at 8:30 and it'll go until 2:15. And one of the other things that I appreciate about the model we chose two different paths to take. And we've chosen not to require our teachers to do both. In the primary grades, we have made that determination that we are going to provide either in-person instruction or a robust quality distance learning program. And I think to do that, you need to have a teacher that's dedicated to that. So that's why a lot of the work that the team has been doing to try to align this, when we have to align and reassign all the classes, all the students to fit into those models. So one of the things I mentioned is not requiring teaching staff to provide both pathways. Again, we feel positive about that. In-person classrooms, we have capped where there's no more than 20 students. And if you can imagine when you have 10 elementary schools and you're allowing your families to make choices, and then you're taking all of these choices, nothing matches up easily. And it all depends on what school they're in. So you may have one school where a lot have chosen to go back in person, some stay in distance learning. So you're trying to match and align those classes based upon those parent requests. So again, because we've allowed that choice, it has required more work for us. It's also requiring us to use more resources, because to be able to provide that, you have to hire more staff. And that's what I feel, that's why we were given the COVID money. We were given the COVID money to, one, ensure safety, but it's to help us get through this crisis. And Lizette's going to talk in a few minutes about the budget and the COVID money. And hopefully when you see that, the board is going to be very pleased, Because what we've looked at the desire to look at a budget where could we use this one-time COVID money to, one, help replace some of the costs that we spent out of our general fund last year that were related to COVID. We've been focusing on that. We've been focusing on providing safety materials. But really the big cost we're focusing on with that is personnel. And again, that just shows our commitment to providing the programs that we're offering. Safety for children, supervision, keeping class sizes in person capped at 20. Many of those are less than 20. That permits us to be able to do our social distancing, but also continue to provide the Sylvan Select. I mean, people put a lot of effort into that. That's a great program, and we've been fine tuning it. And what's so nice about this, the way we're aligning our in-person program, the hours and the time align directly with Sylvan Select. So if we get to a point where we have to close a classroom or go back to distance learning, there's not a huge disruption to the learning process. Those students keep their same teacher. They just rotate into distance learning. They already have the same timeline set up. So I commend our staff for the efforts to coordinate all that. It is really tough. Again, I mentioned due to teachers only delivering one model and families having a choice of models required some students to be reassigned to different teachers. We also were very committed to not be disruptive to our children. They've already had enough challenges and disruption to their lives. And so what we really tried to do with our model is not displace children from their schools. Because when I set the hard cap at 20, that became a real challenge to try to make sure we could keep students. So out of 3,000 students in TK through 3, we've only had to reassign 10 students to a different site for in-person learning. And that I'm very pleased with that outcome, even though I feel bad for those 10 students when you're looking at a 3,000. Now there are students that are in distance learning. They had to go to a different school site distance learning wise, but that's not a physical change. That's more of working with who they're assigned to on their distance learning. And again, a lot of those were TK students because of just the dynamics of those who chose to do in-person and distance learning. So most of those numbers revolve around TK. But I feel really positive about that we've allowed our families to have choice, that we are going to be providing 5 days of almost normal instruction for our students in TK through 3. And to help communicate, we have a communication plan. That's one of the most important things to families right now, is keeping them up to date on what's going on, especially with all these changes. Last Friday, those families were sent an ARIES communication, letting them know what our plans are, that we were putting class schedules together, that they would be notified on Thursday, that there's going to be parent trainings coming up. And so tomorrow, I will be doing a video message. We'll be sending that out, and it'll be more of a welcome to them, to this new model we're doing. And I will give them some details, but they're receiving a lot of the details already in writing. But I'm also going to talk about the parent training videos. And Carrie Albert and her staff did an amazing job. She showed that to us at our meeting earlier this week. She uses emojis. I don't know all of that. I need to get up to speed. I'm struggling just to do a video and do that, but it's amazing what she's provided for resources for these families. And I think it will help ease children in for those coming back to in-person learning. It talks about how to wear a mask, talks about different symptoms you look for before you send your children to school. There's even some, I guess it's rap music, or am I too old? Is it rap music? Okay, rap music, or some kind of good music anyway to help people remember to stay 6 feet apart. So something to do with TikTok. Again, I'm sorry, I'm an old guy, I guess. But if you watch TikTok, you'll recognize the guy singing the 6 foot song. Okay, yeah, there's somebody. Okay, back to business here. But anyway, so that's my goal tomorrow, to give out some more communication there. And then parents will be informed of their child's placement on Thursday. And so, again, kudos also to our site principals. They've had to work with their staff to reassign who was going to do distance learning, who was going to do in person, and they've had to meet with parents about those assignments. So there's been a lot of work at that site level as well. Now, our November 17th, then we'll be rolling that out to our 2nd and 3rd graders, and parents will be informed of those placements on the 13th of November. Again, we won't start on a Monday because we had parent conferences scheduled, so it starts on a Tuesday the 17th. Now, our next work is, if we haven't been doing enough with this, is start to strategize and do plans for our 4 through 8 students. And we mentioned in our reopening plan that there were 3 options we were looking at. We were first of all looking at trying to bring some small group cohorts back to these campuses. So as we're starting to finish the first trimester, starting to look at grades, identifying students who are really struggling with distance learning, we want to see about getting those kids back for some in-person support. And again, we would do that under the small cohort guidance. Then we're going to also start looking at what can we do to bring these kids back in person. And a lot of schools right now are talking about the hybrid model. More than likely, that's the direction we would go. Because one, with these grade levels, the class sizes are large. Many are over 30 students. And so, you know, you're going to need to look at some way to be able to bring these students back in small cohorts, meeting that. And there's some good examples out there. But our Ed Services Department has already started that work. There'll be a task force that she's working with, our team, that will be identifying some possible options. We do have time to go through that. And again, our key focus right now is making sure those kids, when they come back, the TK1 kids come back on Monday, that we're all ready and have a high presence there, and then iron out any concerns we have. But again, I'm excited about our students coming back to school. You know, again, we don't know what the future holds. You know, we really don't. I've never lived in such uncertain times, trying to make decisions and trying to lead. It's more than challenging. But when you have a good team and a supportive group of people you're working with, we can make it happen. And I appreciate, again, those people at the site level. You know, we come up with the plans, but we also rely so heavily on what they do, that I say face-to-face, 6 feet face-to-face interactions as much as possible there. But yeah, that's my update for this month. If there's any questions regarding that. Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Miyakawa.
Thank you so much. And I think each of us would just like to extend our thanks for all the boots on the ground who have, I mean, master schedules are a pain anyway, and under these circumstances, I can't even imagine. So thank you very much for all that. I wondered if, you mentioned there's still some confusion, still some questions. Do we have a hyperlink on our website for frequently asked questions, things like this that could kind of, that we could send parents to kind of answer some of these questions? Do you have anything like that up on our webpage?
Currently we do not. We can explore that.
Okay. I just wonder if you're hearing the same questions over and over, it might behoove us to have some place to point parents to.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. At this time, we'll move to item B, which is the presentation of the Sylvan Educational Foundation mini grants. Who's going to be handling that for us today? Is that you, Mr. Fredrickson?
Yes, that's me.
Excellent.
Yeah, this is a fun thing to do. Again, I've had the pleasure of joining our Sylvan Educational Foundation once a month on our Zoom calls, and what a great group of people and the work they want to do. And again, for them, the challenge of trying to run their fundraisers during this time, that they continue to want to do it, but they're still discussing the breakfast. I know there's still some discussion on that, but one of the key things they do is they provide grants for our teachers, and they were very pleased to be able to distribute over $9,000 in grants this go around. So I'll go ahead and read the names of our teachers who received those. Joanna Beck, Amy Carlin, Trisha De Los Santos, Joy Green and Lisa Bracken, Christina Hansen, Jasmine Hernandez, Bonnie Jewell, Molly Kusick, Rebecca Schmidt, Brittany Welsh, and Melissa Weldon. So again, I know for teachers it takes time to write those grants, and again, to have a foundation that supports teachers to want to go above and beyond is really admirable. So thank you to the foundation for all their work, and to those teachers for being awarded those. Mr. Collins, did you want to make you're on the foundation, was there anything you wanted to say?
Thank you, Mr. Frederickson. I would like to, yes. Just to kind of echo some of the comments that were made earlier, that COVID has made everything exceptionally difficult. And even despite that, we had 11 applications for mini grants this time around, which is certainly lower than usual, but we really appreciate that on top of just a personal and professional worlds that have probably been turned upside down and inside out. Some staff members found the time and the creativity to do just a little bit extra to plan something for their students. I think it really just demonstrates where their hearts and minds and attention are very much focused. So truly thank you. I know it's the foundation's pleasure to be able to provide a little bit of extra funding. Fundraising is always difficult. It was difficult last year. I anticipate it'll be even more difficult this next year. So thank you for your donations to that group as they support the students and staff of this district.
Thank you very much. I'll just tag on to that. We're very grateful for the teachers who did the applications, and to the foundation for their many, many hours of service, especially during holiday times. And let's just add one more group of people to thank. Thank you, public, for going to the firework booth and buying fireworks from the Sylvan School District. And thank you for the years of going to the pancake breakfast and participating in that. And so we can't thank you enough. And we know that without you, these fundraising efforts would not be successful. So it's a good community that gets together for this. So thank you. Lizette, did you want to give us an update on COVID funds? So our community out there, the federal government has passed down COVID money. You hear about it on the news all the time. We actually do a wonderful service to our community. We show you exactly how much we got from the government and how we are spending it. So Lizette, if you could show the public how much money we got from the government and our ongoing expenditures of COVID money.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Raw. So I am sharing the report. I have it up on the screen, and I just kind of want to start with reminding us that we had a short time frame for these funds, and we are just about getting to the halfway point for the use of those funds, as almost 4.4 million of these funds we are required to spend by December 30th. So I've taken some extra time here as we get closer to provide a thorough update and match to what we have up to date as of the date of the report, which is 10/23, and really you may have noticed a few of the categories that were maybe combined into one line and added some additional descriptions as we've gone along the process and purchased some other items and made some changes. So I want to echo a little bit of what Mr. Frederickson talked about, and just the overall importance of these funds for the resources and supplies that we have needed in order to help us prepare for the reopening of our schools. And Mr. Frederickson talked about the importance of having additional resources and support in ways of staff, which is what we do. And so if we go down to about halfway here through the page, you'll see right here we talk about staff and professional resources, and a good chunk of this right here in the middle, we're talking about 1.8 million roughly, is staff that we have as a result of the pandemic, obviously needed to use in different ways that we did not intend and plan for. And so this is staff that we are utilizing these funds to help support, and also provide additional staff. As Mr. Fredericks talked about, additional teaching staff that we will be using to support the distance learning and in-person 20 hard cap on in-person, as well as additional noon duty supervision support and custodial support to help with the cleaning and sanitation efforts that are underway at the sites, and are planning to have already had trainings to start those and implement those enhanced procedures. So I wanted to point out that big just importance of the use of our funds. And then I'm going to go down to the very bottom and just go through the big picture grand total numbers. So if we look at this column here, this is our total spent up to this point, which includes any actual dollars that we've cut the check for and are out the door, or any that are in process that we've encumbered or issued purchase orders for. So currently that comes to $2,255,000 here is the amount you see here in that column. And then underneath that you see the $4,398,000, which is the LLMF Learning Loss Mitigation Fund resource number 3220, that, as I indicated, we have to spend by December 30th. So if you take away that 2.25, that leaves us with 2.1 million. And then if you go over to this next column here, this is the remaining or budgeted funds according to our plan. And again, the things that we have implemented as part of our reopening plans or plan to put in place. And so when you look at that total, we're looking at $2,185,973 of additional anticipated needs that we are planning for and have things in motion for. So as I mentioned, there was $2,143,000 left. You see that would be a little bit underneath that, and I'll go into that here down below. But to look at the spending that's required by December 30th, that would utilize all of that remaining $2,143,000 that we're required to spend by December 30th. And it would use an additional, because you can see that goes, the 43,000 is less than the 2,185,000. So that would leave an additional almost $43,000 that would then be covered by the next set of funds, if you will, that we have available, and that I have provided in a couple of Friday updates, as well as a previous board meeting, indicating that this $621,000 down here are funds that we had originally been told we had to spend by December 30th, but they gave us an additional 6 months to spend. And that is this resource 7420. And so we have until June 30th of 2021 to spend that. And so with all of the expenses that are here spent, actual and encumbered, with the additional needs that we have anticipated here, or budgeted as we refer to them here, we would utilize all of our funds by December 30th. And we would have $579,000 of additional funds that we would need to utilize by June 30th of 2021. And this is particularly important, as I shared this in my Friday update that you received yesterday, was that the state has shared recent articles, and we received information about their concern in ensuring that districts are utilizing these funds and that districts are on track to spend these funds by December 30th, because they also do not want the funds then turned around and have to be returned to them and have them in turn around and have to return that to the federal government. So there's been some communication out about that, and I want you to know that we're on track. We have a plan to get those spent, and again, just have been tremendously necessary in order to support all of our reopening efforts. Is there any, oh, and then Mrs. Lindsay did have a question for me, so let me address that. In the Friday update, there was also mention of a Google admin panel that Mrs. Reed discussed, and just talking about some, I think, cleanup on the back end of their Google systems. And she was wondering if that was something that we were funding out of this. And after speaking to Marty, she's informed me that that's actually, there's not an additional cost for the admin panel. That is just part of our just overall Google platform. Okay. And I think that's it. If there's any other questions.
I have one more.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Um,
Mrs. Lindsay.
Yes, but is this where we discussed, Lizette, the headphones, or is that in a different portion of our agenda tonight?
Yes, we did utilize these funds for some headsets.
Okay. For my fellow board members, I wanted to express some concern about these. First of all, we have 3,000 of them ordered, and I don't remember what the expense was because I can't pull it up on my screen right now. But it was quite a large number of.
For
I
the
remember.
3,000, it's about $38,000.
Right, and that's for just about a third of our students. And so we figured around 100,000, give or take, right, Lizette, to cover every student with the headsets. Now, my biggest concern was, and if Marty, if you're on the line, you can address this. Lizette and I were discussing what those could be used for, and it seemed to me that the things that we came up with were very unimportant and something that could actually have been addressed through maybe Zoom into our classroom, such as the PE or some of those activities that would be used with those headphones. Am I incorrect in knowing though what they're being used for, or could you update me on that?
I think Mrs. Granger is going to chime in and help us answer that question.
Okay, all righty, Mrs. Granger then.
Yes,
Or
hello.
Marty,
And
or whoever.
I'm dark, but
so I'm gonna address your question, Mrs. Lindsay, and then if Marty wants to add in, she can chime in. But yes, thank you for bringing up the headphones or the headsets. And we had a lot of thought and conversation that went into the purchase of these headsets.
Mhm.
You know, you can use an earbud for, in-class learning and being able to have students log in a virtual environment. But there are some problems with that. And one of the problems that we have is that the earbuds and what we looked at that was compatible with the Chromebooks and for our needs did not provide an opportunity for a student to record their voice. And some of our students that will be receiving speech and resource services will be in the classroom with virtual supports. And we needed something that allowed them in the classroom setting to block out extraneous noise and allow them to still record their voice, especially some of our speech students with the clarity that's needed for their speech services. So that is one reason we went with there's some feedback, sorry. I think Lizette has to mute. All right. Sorry about that. Thank you. So we wanted to make sure we had something that was of a quality that would allow us to be able to provide those services in the classroom if they are virtual. Even if the student is in person, the services may be virtual. And we wanted something that also provided that recording of the voice capability. The other reason we looked at a headset that was had capabilities beyond just the earbud type style, is that our students will be participating, all of our students in elementary school will be participating in art and music. We're so proud to be able to continue our fine arts program. Even in the midst of everything that's going on, our fine arts specialists have been just tremendous in developing lessons and how they can reach students in a virtual format. And so our art and music specialists will be providing virtual supports. So students in person will be logging in to participate in art and music. And if all of those students are logging in order for all of them to be actively engaged, participate in the chat, answer questions, raise their hand, and actively engage in that way, they need to be able to have the capability on their individual device. You wouldn't want to do that in a whole group. You get feedback for all of those reasons that Mr. Raw described earlier with having a lot of people in a single setting. So you do need a headset capability for students to be able to do that. So that is why we went with a model that would provide for all of those reasons in the virtual environment, even if the kids are in person.
Okay, now that's art and music. I understand that. But I understand the importance of being able to use that for in a speech feedback situation. But we're not looking at purchasing this for every single student in Sylvan School District, are we?
What are the other area that I failed to mention too was ELD support. So that's another service that could be provided virtually. So our purposes in providing these was to start with the purchases for our TK through third grade students that are coming back in person, so that we would have those available, because as soon as they're back in person, these supports and these things that I just described, these programs and services will begin. And so we wanted to make sure we had those on hand for the students that are returning.
Yeah, but that's not answering my question. My question is is the plan to eventually have every student in Sylvan having a pair of headsets?
So no, we are not planning to provide for every middle school
Right.
student if it's not necessary for them to be able to have that. A lot of these decisions around how many more sets we're going to need will come out of our conversations and our models on how we're bringing back students in 4th through 8th grade. So if it is determined that our model for reopening for these grade levels will require them to have some virtual supports, it is possible that they will need a headset. It may be possible that not every kid in those grades needs a headset. So we're preparing and thinking through what that model will be like, and then what do we need for those supports.
Okay. I guess what my concern is, I know that we've got almost $6 million or $600,000 here. And I just want, as I expressed to Lizette, is that it looks like a lot of money left, but we have 6 months to look forward to. Well, actually 8 months. And I just think that we need to be really, really careful now with this last $600,000 on where we allocate it, where we're looking to put it, because we do know that those things become obsolete so rapidly. You know how often we have miles and miles of obsolete technology coming to us, and I don't want to. I want to be real careful with this last 600,000 almost that we have, and not just hurriedly try to find places to spend it, because I really do believe that we're going to find in the next 6 or 8 months that we're going to be finding places we're going to need that money. So while I appreciate the need for the ESL, for the speech therapy, any of those areas, I understand and appreciate that. I do have a little bit of an issue with music and art, where I think that could be done in a Zoom manner for the whole classroom to be able to see on a screen through our projectors. So I would like to encourage you to at least to look into other areas and other ways to possibly save a little bit of that money, and be able to have that on hand in case we do run into something down the road.
All right, thank you. I'm going to chime in and go a little different direction. it's probably the outcome is the same as Mrs. Lindsay. But I just want to give you some food for thought on a couple of things. In the year 2020, in probably the minds of most Americans or people that walk this earth, they have in their mind that earbuds are disposable. They are not a long-term thing. For example, if I was to put in a pair of earbuds, I can assure you Mr. Collins in no way or form would ever put those earbuds on because George Raw wore them. Not that he doesn't love my ears, but it's just a time and period we're going through that earbuds are something that are not reusable in today's society because people are grossed out about it. And I understand that you want a particular earbud that has a level of technology that is useful. My suggestion to you would be to get your cohort of people that actually need a high-tech headset and buy for that small cohort the high-tech headsets. But for the rest of us, the buck or 50-cent headsets are going to work just fine because most of them are going to find their way in the trash. And there's no way any other student in that classroom is going to borrow the headset of somebody else just because it's gross. And it's just not done in our society anymore. Years ago, we might have done it. I know people are even going to say, well, we could sanitize them. But there's a stigma, even though you sanitize them, people are going to say, there's no way I'm putting those headsets on, even though you've wiped them clean. So just food for thought. I think you might want to rethink. I don't disagree with headsets. I just think that the vast majority of people can use disposable, cheap 50-cent headsets and save them higher tech ones that are costing $10 or more for a select group of people that actually need a high-tech headset. So I'll leave it at that. I just think the methodology should be rethought. We'll go to Mrs. Harvey next.
Hi, thank you so much. Laura, Ms. Granger, do the kids also need it? I mean, I don't even like talking about this, but state testing, do they use headsets for that?
They do use headsets for that. And I do want to point out that we did think through, the students that had the need for some of those higher tech things. I will tell you that one of the things that factored into our decision was we didn't want to single out any particular student that received speech services or resource services or ELD services as having something different that stood out in quite a obvious way with the rest of the class. So we were trying to look at trying to make things comfortable in a classroom setting and have kids have the same access.
Make it so it's socially equitable for everybody so one kid isn't stigmatized. Ooh, you got the fancy headsets, you're one of those. Is that kind of what you're thinking, partly? And then, and the kids now, but the
would happen. Why does Johnny get the nice set and I have these cheap ones? I don't think they're going to be pointing fingers at somebody.
Oh,
they're having a nice one.
No matter how hard you try. And I guess the other.
But I mean, I get it. I
guess the other thing is
fine. I mean, I just don't think it's necessary, but I'm not sure I buy that argument. But anybody else want to say anything about headsets and
yes.
She's not finished, George.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's spend more time on headsets. Go ahead, Mrs. Harvey.
Well, again, just some questions. So the kids now, will the kids get to use them? Like they kind of keep their same computers, or like, are they going to keep their headsets for the rest of the whole year or throughout their term within Sylvan until they die? I mean, not work?
No, they don't last that long, Christine.
Well, the fancy ones do. Some of the fancy ones have lasted a pretty long time. Based on my experience in a classroom setting, if the kid takes really good care of it. So,
correct. These will be assigned to the students, just like their Chromebook device is assigned to them. It will stay at their desk with them. And we did explore the feasibility of buying perhaps some other versions of the headsets, but we were concerned about the number of iterations of purchases that we might have to do to replace those. And I know that many of them are disposable, but in identifying this particular model, we felt like it would last for the next 6 months. I mean, at least 5 to 6 months longer for some of our kinder and first grades that are coming back next week. They're going to get a running start on the use of these. So we did attempt to find something that would have a little more longevity for the remainder of the school year to avoid having to purchase again at another interval.
So from your perspective, if you did when you did a cost benefit analysis of, it's a little bit more cost up front. However, they last longer. They'll take you through the end of the year. You don't have to order more. It decreases the stigma. It has better technology, so the teachers aren't always fussing with the technology. So based on all that, intrinsic and extrinsic costs, you feel this is a better way to go.
That was the recommendation of the tech department and ed services working together. Yes.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Laura, one quick question, David. I'm sorry, just one question while we're on there. How much were they? I mean, I don't have the figures right directly in front of me. How much were they individually?
They were $12 a piece.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
Sure. Maybe next time we're at CSBA conference, we can get a really big bag. They give them away free there. Go ahead, Mr. Collins.
So I would just like to say I support the headsets. I think they're just fine. I'd like to say two things for the record. One, it is extremely reasonable to not share things that you insert into any part of your body, be it your ears or your mouth or your nose. Completely reasonable to have that be suddenly a personal and unique item. Second, in terms of how long earbuds last, I still have the earbuds that came with my first generation Game Boy that I bought in 1991, and they still work.
Well, you would, David.
I mowed lawns for 2 summers to earn that thing, and I'm happy with it.
Mrs. Lindsay, be careful because
I've
he's
lost mine.
validating your position.
I've lost every headset I've ever had.
Okay, I think I don't know how to end all this headset talk. I think they're needed. My position is I don't think you need to buy $12 ones. I think you can get a lot cheaper ones, but if that's how you're going to spend your money, I'm not going to beat that one up. But I certainly wouldn't spend $12 on a headset.
Well, I'm going to stay on top of it, Mr. Raw. I feel like we only have $500,000 left, or approximately, and we cannot waste $100,000 of it doing, buying headsets that are going to be broken and destroyed in months. So I would really like the staff to be maybe save the 12 for the ESL classes and things or something like that. But I would really like them to look at other options.
Okay. I think you've heard the opinions of a couple of board members. Let me finish off this with Mr. Frederickson and Mrs. Aguilar. I want to compliment both of you for your extraordinary transparency on these COVID funds. I think many people can watch TV and listen to the talking heads all day long and don't realize that schools actually get COVID funds. I think if you watch TV, you would make the assumption that schools don't get COVID funds. Well, we are laying out to the public in a very transparent way that the Sylvan Union School District got $4.5 million in COVID funds. And not only that, we are laying out to the public exactly how we're going to effectively and transparently use those funds. So I applaud both of you and your staff for making government work in such a way that is transparent and makes me very comfortable with what's happening with the U.S. taxpayers' dollar. And I just want to recognize both of you and your staff for your transparency in this whole process. And I look forward to continually keeping this and even putting it on our website. And I think a lot of government agencies could learn a lot from the way you guys are conducting business here. and making it a very transparent process. So thank you both for the way you are conducting the business of this district. Item D
Thank
is
you.
the new board member interviews. Just to bring the public up to this, as many of you know, Mr. Collins is retiring from the Board of Trustees after 13 years of faithful service. Tomorrow evening, the Board of Trustees will be conducting interviews. Actually, the word is not plural, it will be interview. We have only had one person apply for Mr. Collins' position. The Board of Trustees will go through the process as they have with advertising and now going through the process of interviewing this candidate. During that board meeting, after interviewing the candidates, they will deliberate in a public way and then give a formal up or down vote on this individual. If they are approved, they will be appointed for 4 years, and they will serve on the Board of Trustees for those 4 years. If they're not approved, the Sylvan School District will repeat the process and go out again to seek candidates for that appointment. So if you are interested in watching how government works, I know many of you watched hearings in Washington. You will now see hearings in the Sylvan Union School District, and we'll perform those in a public way tomorrow evening. Item E is safety and facilities update. Mr. Frederickson, will it be you or will it be Mrs. Aguilar giving us our safety and facilities update?
Mrs. Aguilar. Yep.
Okay, so I just have a brief update. As you know, we've been talking about USTAC, and I have been providing updates on that. We're pretty much down to just a few last punch list items that are anticipated to be completed by the end of next week. And aside from that, the only big item, as we've discussed, is the lockers and some looking at options for that. So we have just received some new information that we'd like to share with the board facilities subcommittee in the next couple of weeks to discuss that, and then bring that to the subsequent board meeting to discuss with the whole board and take some action on that last remaining agenda item, or last remaining item at USTAC, I'm sorry. So is there any questions?
Yes, Mrs. Lindsay.
Yes. Well, obviously, my biggest concern right now is change orders. And I really are in all these things that you're finding at the last minute. Are we going to be held responsible? Is the architect going to be held responsible? How is this going to be dealt with?
We have been talking to the architect and getting that information, and we would like to have that discussion with the board subcommittee and providing all of that information just in general about that, the lockers option and what transpired in getting to that point. I think it's important to have that discussion all together, so then we can bring that information back to the board and have a complete discussion on that, just that whole subject.
Well, there's other issues besides that, besides the lockers, So I would like maybe not to have to wait 2 weeks before the board knows what direction you're going to be going as far as dealing with the other issues that we've talked about or you've updated us on.
I'm not sure. I know that there's several items that, are you talking about that list of items from Mr. Raw?
I don't know who they came from. They came to me. There was concrete, there was mold, there was all kinds of issues that are still sitting out there that we don't know about as a board.
So the concrete is just one that was in this last Friday update that was just discovered by staff, and that one we are waiting for the contractor to inform us how they're going to remedy that. So that is one of the issues that's pending, just one of the last few items that are pending. And then regards to the change order, there will be, I've provided in previous Friday updates, the PCOs that will be compiling and forming this very last change order that will be change order number 8, if I remember my numbering correctly, which will be the last and final change order to close out the project. So I can definitely, I am awaiting that. I've just asked the architect, and he has indicated he plans on getting that last change order submitted to our office soon so that we can review that, and I can definitely provide that information in the next Friday update.
Okay, I'm just very, very concerned about the fact that we did have the extra 200,000 set aside, but it wasn't really to be used for change orders per se, and so I'm really getting concerned. How far in are we dipping into that? Are we going to have to pay back to the general fund?
To the general fund. For what would we be paying back to the general fund?
Well, let me chime in here. It was not actually borrowed from the general fund. It was borrowed from other funds.
Okay.
Is what she's saying. So, Mrs. Lindsay, I think what Lizette is suggesting is that there's going to be a bit of negotiation going on this. So she's encouraging that we hold a subcommittee meeting, Mrs. Miyakawa and myself, with her, the architect, and all the interested parties. And then we will bring it back to the board in full transparency and disclosure of every step that we took along the way to see if we can come to a resolution of this. Because like you said, there are unexpected change orders we didn't anticipate, the lockers, there's a whole litany of things. And to do it in an expeditious and an efficient manner, it might be better to deal with it with the subcommittee first, then bring it back to the full board with full disclosure of everything that happened in that subcommittee meeting. But it might be difficult to try to negotiate in a public meeting with the Board of Trustees and trying to send staff back and forth and trying to work these change orders and the lockers and all that out. That would be the more efficient way to do it.
It might be efficient, Mr. Robb, but it is keeping 3 of the board members out of the loop until all the decisions are made, and that's difficult for other 3 board members.
If you don't like the way I'm suggesting it, then Mrs. Lindsay, I'm
certainly. Could we be brought up to date more often than 2 weeks after the decision's made?
Well, there's no decision being made. What we're trying to do. So if you have another, it sounds like to me your issue is more of keeping the board informed through Friday updates. That is a suggestion you can make to Mrs. Aguilar. If you don't want the subcommittee to try to negotiate these change orders that are coming in at the end,
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Different way to deal with that. I'm willing to listen to your ideas.
No, I wasn't suggesting that. I was just hoping that the board would be kept in the loop a little closer, because as you even have said yourself, that some things are taking place that we're not even aware of before that they're happening. So I would like to, be kept in the closer loop before we go into expending more money in areas that from funds from wherever they came from.
Okay, well, if your suggestion is that I know that myself as a board member and Mrs. Miyakawa cannot inform you, but there is nothing that prohibits Mrs. Aguilar or the superintendent from informing you based upon what happens in those subcommittees and discussions. So if that will be helpful to you, great. Or if you would like some other type of methodology in resolving these, because I think you've known me for 20 some years, that I've already given them a laundry list of concerns I have regarding the 11th hour change order issues.
So maybe if, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, maybe no one else feels like that I'm only speaking for myself, but if we were given the option to be able to have some input in the laundry list too, or to at least know where, do we have to pay that money back to those funds?
The answer is yes. And at the time that would happen would be if we received matching funds from the state of California in the facilities fund when we apply for USTAC modernization funds. Currently, that bank account has 0 in it, but if we do get matching funds back, then the appropriate funds would be able to be reimbursed. If we do not receive funds from the state of California for the modernization, then
Has to come out
we
of the
wouldn't be
general
able to
fund.
pay those back.
But it come out of the general fund?
Well, they didn't come out, Mrs. Lindsay, they didn't come out of the general fund. They actually came out of specific funds. I don't know the number or the specific names, but they were facility funds. I think one was like a deferred maintenance fund. Mrs. Aguilar does have a list of those because Mrs. Perez made a list before she left of exactly where the funds were coming from. If you remember at the 11th hour when we went into the USTAC modernization, we were short funds and we resolved the problem by 2 facets. You hired a subcommittee. At that point is when you appointed myself and Mrs. Miyakawa to work with Mrs. Hendricks to reduce the scope of the USTAC modernization project and to look at where we could pull other funds from to complete the project. And you are correct in that we did have a contingency fund, but the lion's share of that contingency fund was money that was borrowed from a fund that I believe, and don't hold me to this because I need to look at the paperwork. It was like a deferred maintenance fund or something. And I think it was around a couple of $100,000. So there was anticipation that those funds would be reimbursed when the state of California reimbursed us for modernization, and or if we didn't spend the contingency funds is an option too. And that's kind of the path I was going down, that we wouldn't be spending that much in contingency fund. However, that is not what's turning out to be. And what really scares me is if we run out of contingency fund when we get to the lockers, you know, and I don't know any of that. That's sheer conjecture on my point. I'm waiting for Mrs. Aguilar to inform me and Mrs. Miyakawa in a subcommittee where we finally stand with the final change order and the locker issue.
Okay. All right.
And then this coming,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Lizette.
no, I was just saying this coming Friday update, I can provide the fund breakout just as a reminder. That is listed on the report that comes to you whenever we have a change order. We have the fund summarized at the top and then the latest change order with the bottom line of what the remaining contingency balance that is brought to the board with every change order.
Okay, I just knew we had 200,000 in contingency money that was not really part of the original bid. And I knew that we were getting close to spending all that. I didn't know if we had to put that back into the general fund, into another fund, or if we ran out, do we go to the general fund for more money? That's where I guess I'm leading to down the path too. So if you could update me on that, or all of us, I'm sure everybody would like to know that.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Your request is reasonable, Mrs. Lindsay. There will be full transparency and disclosure on all the fund expenditures on USTAC. And in addition, we are still waiting for reimbursement funds on Sylvan. And so there are funds that could come from that too that could be helpful. But again, that is sheer speculation. There is no promise or guarantee of modernization funds being reimbursed on either USTAC or Sylvan. We're just hoping that that will be the case in the future.
Yeah, both of those projects are in line for funding. It's a matter of when they would get to those applications that we have submitted, because as we know, they are delayed in processing those, but those have been turned in and are awaiting that process.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Aguilar. And if I could add one thing to a potential report in a future meeting under safety, One of the superintendent goals under Mrs. Hendricks was to purchase cameras for Somerset. I know that, I don't know if we have any kiddos over there on that campus, but it would be nice that in the coming month or two, that may eke over into Mrs. Miyakawa's tenure as president, that we get a report on the cameras, whether they're saving us on vandalism, whether they're saving us on things when kids get back, the kiddos get back to campus, and saving on any type of behavior problems or whatever. They're put in for a wide variety of reasons, but it would be nice to get a report of their functionality, whether the bandwidth works, and whether it was a wise investment before we go in the future on those on other sites.
Yes, I would definitely add that to the list. We will look at what data we have available, and like you said, there's not students fully back on that campus. So while that may be limited, we'll definitely look at it and see what we can bring you in form of an update.
Very good. Mrs. Harvey, is your hand up or just stretching? Just stretching. Very good. Action item 1 is the approval of Sylvan Union School District and CSEA and its Sylvan Chapter 73 Memorandum of Understanding for reopening schools 2020-2021. Ms. Peterson, did you want to talk about this, or do you feel the board has received adequate information on it?
I think the board has received adequate information. Just want to thank CSEA and its leadership for working towards solutions that meet the needs of staff and continue to serve our students and community. So I present this for the board's approval.
Very good. Looking for a motion to approve tonight.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Collins and a second. A second by Mrs. Harvey. Roll call vote, please.
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Miyakawa,
Aye.
Board President Ross.
Aye, that's a 5-0 vote. The motion carries. The item is adopted and approved. Item B is the adoption of Resolution 2021, number 10, for approval of award for contract for COVID-19 testing. Who's going to, Mr. Frederickson, is that you?
Yeah, Dee Dee and I will work on it together, but I'll start out and she can follow up if I'm missing something on that. One of the big discussions that on my Friday meetings with superintendents over the last month or so has been the discussion of COVID testing for staff. And again, one of the things that was the biggest challenge was the public health had their setup where people could do testing through their facilities. But it was quickly determined that districts our size and larger, they didn't have the capacity to address that number of individuals to attend there. And other districts our size were also looking at that. So a lot of discussions about what company has the capacity. Again, the requirement for the waiver and also just to reopen schools is that staff are tested every 2 months. They call it surveillance testing. Again, you know, when you're testing everybody, I wouldn't necessarily call that surveillance, but that's a requirement to test everybody every 2 months. The other challenge with that is we're getting a lot of mixed messages about it from the State Department. Some of the discussions come down is, are they going to even continue to require this because of the hardship and the cost to administer it? Not only, you know, the cost of the test itself, but just the coordination and management of that is hugely burdensome. Then you also have opinions that they want to increase it once a month. So again, as I mentioned before, trying to lead during this environment is challenging, and this is one of those things because, you know, this isn't cheap. It's about $115 per test to do. Although this action item is not about choosing a company or it's not even the contract. What this is like I said, over the months, the superintendents have been talking about, we're going to need some help here. Rather than each district going out trying to come up with their own vendor, try to do all their own research, although we did do some of our own preliminary work there. Thank you, Dee Dee, for doing that. So we have some backup plans as well with very similar costs. But so anyway, the county went out and, you know, kind of doing the piggyback concept, the co-op concept. They went out and basically negotiated a contract with Quest, and yet each district will enter into their own contract. They still establish the pricing and the conditions for that. But one of the things that's recommended with this resolution is that each district cover themselves, because it is up to bidding, and basically the county went with this company, and this resolution points out that there is flexibility to bypass some of that bidding process, and it's all outlined here. Again, this is just more important of this is just to make sure our district is covered if we choose to move forward with that contract. And again, we asked the company to provide us with a contract so we could take a look at it. It arrived last Friday after the board packet was prepared. So we're just going to hold off until our November board meeting to bring any contracts regarding testing. Again, we want to choose something though that is doable. This is the big task to do. Again, when you're thinking about testing every employee on a 2-month cycle, that coordination, one, we don't want our employees missing work to go down to some clinic or down to one of the public health offices to take a test. And, you know, again, that's lost time with kids, or whether it's distance learning or in-person learning, and inconvenience for them as well. So what's nice about this, and we'll get more logistics with it, some of it can be administered either at the school site. We're looking at that. Some of those it can just be shipped in directly, and it includes all the costs for mailing. So there's a lot of logistics with the contract, but I don't want to go into that right now because that's what we'll present later. This again is just a resolution to ensure we're covering ourselves with the bidding process to be involved with this.
Thank you, Mr. Frederickson. Any questions by board members? Yes, Mrs. Lindsay.
Yes, Mr. Frederickson, and if and when you do go into the sign the contract, and is it a year contract? Is it a monthly contract? What kind of contract is it?
No, it's severable whenever you want to stop. There's no even signing the contract with them. You're not. It's just they lay out the guidelines for what the cost for purchasing and what they will services they provide. So there's no minimum how many you have to purchase. So that was one of the key things that the superintendents wanted to be negotiated with, that is because there's so many uncertainties. We didn't want to get locked into anything. But what locks it in is the cost.
Okay, and this is kind of like the waiver that if we don't get in under in this resolution, then we're not in the ball game.
No, we can get in the ball game anytime we want. We're just moving right along with what other districts are doing, just to put themselves in line with that. Yeah.
Okay. I just couldn't understand why we were doing it right now instead of waiting till November.
Right. Yeah. It's just getting it ready to go. We thought we'd actually have a contract sooner because, we had spoken with them earlier about that, but they said it was coming that week, and it came that week at the very end after we had already posted our agenda. So,
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Frederickson. For the general public out there, this is quite a challenge that they're asking us for. I can just anecdotally give you just a little background. Some of you may know both my sons are administrators at skilled nursing facilities. When I was young, we called them nursing homes. One runs one in Oakland and one in San Jose. they are required by law to test everybody every 2 weeks in a skilled nursing facility. 2 months almost sounds like a gift that we, but it doesn't sound like that to Mr. Frederickson.
No.
So they're under every 2 weeks, everyone has to be tested. But another thing that I learned along the way is that private health insurance covers this at no cost to the participant. I know that that's not the direction we're going under schools, but I know that for these facilities, you just give your insurance card, and evidently it's a government mandate or something, but your own insurance covers that. And response is usually in 24, maximum 48 hours. Most of the time it comes in 24 hours. So why I share this is maybe Quest, this is new for them and getting into it, or a lot of people are ahead of them along the way. But I know that a lot of industries are doing this already. And but hopefully we won't have to do it forever. Tonight we're passing a resolution so that we can move forward with this, and it will be interesting to see what they require of us in the future. So I'm looking for a board member to make a motion to approve the resolution, knowing that the contract will come later.
I'll make a motion.
Yes. Oh, you still have a question, Mrs. Miyakawa, or you want to make a motion?
Make a motion.
She's making a motion, a second by Mrs. Harvey. Roll call vote, please.
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Miyakawa,
Aye.
Board Member Raw.
Aye, that's a 5-0 vote. The motion carries. The resolution is passed. We're on to item C, which is approving the job description for maintenance and operations. Mrs. Peterson, any comments on this?
I do not have any comments unless the board has any questions. I present it for your approval.
Any questions by board members? Seeing no hands, looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Collins makes a motion to approve the job description. Mrs. Lindsay makes the second. Roll call vote, please.
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Miyakawa,
Aye.
Board Member Raw.
Aye, that's a 5-0 vote. The motion carries. The job description is approved. Item D is the approval of the Memorandum of Understanding with the Stanislaus County Office of Education, MOU for Equitable Services. Who's covering that for us tonight?
I am, Mr.
All right, Mrs. Granger.
Yes, I don't have anything to add. I'm happy to take any questions. This is an annual contract that we bring, or excuse me, MOU that we bring forward.
Okay, questions by fellow board members? All right, we have a question, Mrs. Lindsay.
Yes. Just kind of quickly define equitable services for me.
Sure. So equitable services has to do with the federal laws related to the federal monies that we receive. So Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV. In this particular case, this is related to district receiving those monies, and those monies also being made available to private schools within the boundary of the district. So this MOU allows us, which Marty has always done in the past. So Marty used to do all of this on her own in reaching out to the private schools in our area. But a couple of years ago, the County Office of Ed, their staff, their categorical staff decided that instead of each person at individual districts engaging in that work, that the County Office of Ed staff could assist all of the districts and do some of that work and that reach out that's required by law and do that collectively for the group. That's why there's no fee, there's no cost related to it. It's just an agreement that we will partner with them to go out and do this work that we used to do individually in our district and that Marty handled.
Okay, and for those that might be watching, these Title I, Title II, Title III funds are different funds than the general funds. So for people to understand that these funds that we're voting on are totally different monies that are used for specific causes. And maybe you could, I don't know, am I saying it correctly?
That is correct. Federal monies that we receive are not general fund monies.
Okay, thank you.
All right, looking for a motion to approve.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay, we have one motion by Mrs. Harvey and a second by Mrs. Miyakawa. Roll call vote, please.
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Miyakawa,
Aye.
Board Member Raw.
Aye, that's a 5-0 vote. The memorandum of understanding is approved. Item E is the approval agreement with Language Line Services. Who will be handling this one?
Good evening. I am. How are
Okay,
you?
very good. Thank you.
Absolutely. I am pleased to bring to you an agreement with Language Line to provide on-demand interpreting services. More detailed information was provided in the recent Friday update. So do you have any questions for me?
Board member questions? Looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Collins and a second by Mrs. Miyakawa. A roll call vote, please.
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Miyakawa,
Aye.
Board Member Raw.
Aye, that's a 5-0 vote. The motion is approved and the agreement for language services is approved. Item F is the approval of the 2021 superintendent goals for superintendent evaluation. Mr. Frederickson.
Yes, I presented these goals to the board earlier in the year, a draft of those, and this is the final copy, aligned directly with what we talked about before. Most of my energy, as you can expect, is going to be focusing on dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and aligning with our distance learning platform. So again, the implementation of the Sylvan Select model, then working with our distance learning and hybrid models, finding ways to engage our students and address some of the learning loss that's out there. And so again, when you look at one of the goals, it's measuring. That's the challenge with this, is how to measure some of these goals. And looking at student attendance, student engagement, and learning loss, there is data that we can use with that. So I'll be aligning that with the goals. Also, the implementation of the local continuity plan. Again, like I said, it all ties together with our COVID-19 crisis that we're going through. And probably one of the more basic ones is the fourth goal of just measuring safety and cleaning. And so those are, especially as we start to enter into next week, that's going to be one of those key measurements. I know we've worked a lot with Lizette and her crew to come up with some protocols and some logs and ways to measure that. So I think they're pretty practical goals that apply. It's different for me. I've always had goals that align to the CAS testing, the dashboard, all of the things with the LCAP. It was always pretty clear about the direction you were going with that. And this is like a whole new language as I worked on these goals, is that's again, where most of my energy has gone since I've been here. And I would imagine it's going to continue to be focused on that. But I'll give an update on December 15th. Look for some of these metrics and give the board an update.
Well, Mr. Frederickson, if you just had two goals, one was to complete a distance learning component for all the students in the Sylvan Union School District in a matter of weeks, and goal number two was how to reintroduce the population back into a COVID-infected environment. I'm sorry, I'm laughing here. If those were your only two goals, those would be mountains to climb.
Yeah.
So thank you for putting these goals together. But just the mere two, those other two goals are just monumental. So I apologize for laughing because it's like incomprehensible what you've been asked to do. So thank you for working with us in creating goals And thank you for helping us navigate this in your first few months of being here. Any other comments from board members, or should you want to vote on the goals?
Me, can you
All
see
right.
me?
Yes, I see you, Mrs. Lindsay.
Okay, I couldn't tell. You were kind of looking the other way. What is local continuity? Is that the working together with the superintendents and the health department? Is that what you're talking about?
No, that's the plan this year that they replaced the LCAP with. So that's that plan we developed earlier in the year about how we were going to provide
New
distance
title.
learning. Yeah. And
Okay.
in person. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, looking for a motion to approve the superintendent's goals.
So moved.
Mrs. Lindsay made the motion. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Harvey. Roll call vote, please.
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Board Member Harvey.
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Miyakawa,
Aye.
Board Member Raw,
Aye, that's a 5-0 vote. Your goals have been approved, Mr. Frederickson.
Thank you.
Item 8 is the approval of construction funds expended. Questions by board members? Looking for a motion to approve the construction fund expenditures.
So moved.
Oh, do you have a question, Mrs. Miyakawa?
So moved.
Making the motion by Mrs. Miyakawa. A second, please. A second by Mrs. Harvey. A roll call vote, please.
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Miyakawa,
Aye.
Board Member Raw,
Aye. The construction funds have a 5-0 vote for approval, and so they are approved. We are on to the consent agenda, starting with Mrs. Miyakawa. Any items for questions or separate vote?
Nope.
All right, Mrs. Harvey, any for a separate vote or questions?
Not this time, thank you.
All right, Mr. Collins, any for a separate vote or questions?
None at this time. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Lindsay, any for a separate vote or questions?
Question.
On which item?
D.
Okay, item D, and Mr. Raw has no questions for discussion. So the one that we'll discuss at this time is the approval of a list of obsolete property. Mrs. Lindsay.
Yes, I was just wondering, is this, Marty, I guess this is under Marty.
Yes.
Marty, is more technology that we're finding that, or is this from that cleaning up that we did?
This is
with
more,
Google-
this
with
is,
Google.
oh, no. That's all virtual. That's all online.
Oh, it's
No,
virtual.
this is more of the cleanup of stuff that we continue to find, devices and other items that are no longer functioning. They just keep coming out of closets.
I think I have one on my couch. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mrs. Harvey and a second by
Me.
Mrs. Lindsay. Roll call vote, please.
Board Member Collins,
Aye.
Board Member Harvey,
Aye.
Board Member Lindsay,
Aye.
Board Member Miyakawa,
Aye.
Board Member Raw,
Aye, that's a 5-0 vote. The consent agenda is approved and adopted. Superintendent Frederickson, are there any other items you wanted to bring up at this time?
No, not at this time.
Okay, very good. Mrs. Harvey, are we good, or did you need anything?
Not this time, next
Okay.
meeting, but thank you.
Very good. All right, so that's the meeting agenda for tonight. The business has been conducted by the Sylvan Union School District. Those of you who are welcome to join us tomorrow night for a brief meeting, lasts about an hour or so. Thank you all for joining us tonight. This meeting is officially adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Raw.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.